experienced a nice, like really warm vacation, I guess, in the winter. And so I got sunburnt, and but I remember going into the water there, into the ocean. We were on in Maui, and it was Kaanapali Beach. I guess it was, you know, that's kind of the main tourist spot there. And a little bit of a rattling noise up there. I don't think it's my keys. I think it's some screw in there that's rattling around or something that's loose. But we were in Maui, and I went into the ocean, and I was like, oh my gosh, this water is like warm. Obviously you're way further south there in Hawaii, and the water, you know, it's all year round. The temperature is pretty much the same. It's like 75 to 85 degrees pretty much every day. Nothing really changes there, which is awesome. But and they had some rain too. There was like some tropical rain there, you know, for a few hours, but it was like warm, you know, like I said, tropical rain that that kind of was cool. And then it would pass with rainbows, and it would be sunny again, so that was really nice. But the water was very pleasant. You know, I stayed in there for probably an hour, just kind of swimming around, because you know, you weren't you had the sun beating down on you, and then the water just was like relatively warm, so warmer than a pool would be. I had never, again, that might sound just kind of simple to you, but for me, I never knew that. You know, I always just thought water was cold, being for where I'm from, right? So that was a really cool trip, and you know, I totally understand why people would want to go there, or places like that, especially in the winter, just because it's so much different than what's going on here. I wouldn't want to go anywhere in our summer, because the weather is so nice here that it's like, you know, I'd rather go somewhere tropical when our weather's not very good and enjoy their nice weather. So yeah, I just wanted to take this out because I think I probably have to put it in the garage for the next, you know, probably better part of 4 months without really riding it very much. I am a little concerned. There seems to be, you know, a little pile of oil under the bike every time I park it. I don't know if it's transmission fluid or engine oil or what. It's a very, very small amount, and I can see it, you know, in the garage after I leave it there for a few days. There seems to be just a little pile of something there. I never really noticed anything under there. All the bolts seem to be fine, and the oil filter cover went on, and you know, I tightened everything up really tight with the transmission fluid. I think it's an Allen head. I don't remember exactly what size, but I used a breaker bar on it because it was so tight. I don't know when and if the last guy had ever changed the transmission oil. It's not really a common service that someone does unless you take it to a dealership. So it may have been the original transmission fluid. It probably wasn't. It had probably been changed once before, or maybe twice before, but this bike only had like 20,000 miles on it when I bought it, and you don't really have to change that oil, I think, but every 12,000 miles. And I don't know what maybe someone who watches this would know, but if you have something that hasn't been used for like, you know, 10 years, how often are you supposed to change that oil if you just don't use it, right? I don't know the answer to that. If the bike gets used so infrequently, and you know, you have oil in there, obviously. This bike is 21 years old. It's a 1999, and I had the manual. So the guy someone bought this bike in, I think it was Texas, or I think it was maybe Missouri. So this bike was originally for Texas or Missouri. Somehow it ended up here in Washington. And there's a few records in that service book because the BMW gave you the manual. and it's like 600 miles service done. So right when it was new, whoever bought it from the dealership went back in there and got probably the engine, you know, they do whatever they do, they change out some of the oil for you and the filter probably and the transmission fluid, because that's just, I guess, what's recommended by BMW, and they'll do that for you if you buy it from the dealership, I'm sure. So that was in there like July 12th of 1999, that was done, right? And then I didn't see, I think I may have seen like a 5,000 or a 6,000 mile service in there in like 2000 or 2001. I don't 100% recall, but then that's it. So, you know, basically in 18 years before I bought it, the bike did like less than 1,000 miles a year. So all the fluid that's in there, I have no idea if that had ever been changed in 18 years, because it hadn't been ridden that much to where it really would need to be changed. But maybe someone knows, and I know there's different schools of thought on it. Some people will say, you know, you should probably change your oil like every year if you don't ride it, I guess, and if you plan on using it, but I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I would assume over like 10 years, the oil is going to be a lot less effective than it would be if you put new stuff in there. But you know, these things are built pretty solid. I've seen all sorts of random videos on YouTube where people put, you know, like really old oil or like different types of oil that's not motor oil, and it doesn't really affect the engine. So you know, if you have stuff that's in there, even if it's old, I'm sure it'll probably be okay. It won't destroy it. But that's a good question, because I think a lot of people, they own these machines and they have, you know, there's a lot of maintenance that probably should be done, but if someone really doesn't use it, then it's like, why am I going to do that, right? For example, like the radiator fluid on this is a complete pain in the ass to change, because you have to take off all this plastic stuff, and I think you maybe even have to take off the gas tank to change your radiator fluid. And I think you're supposed to change that every 4 to 5 years from what I've researched. But it's just kind of a pain in the ass to change that. So I don't know when the guy that I bought it from changed it, and I haven't changed it. I haven't had any, you know, heating issues as far as I know, or any warning signs or anything. But preventatively, I'll probably have to get in there and change that, you know, in the next few years, just for peace of mind. You would hate to have something happen because you did change that out. Although it's probably unlikely. I mean, I'm sure there's people who basically never change that and never have any problems. But hey, maybe someone knows what's the recommended time. What's the recommended time interval that someone, you know, because I'm sure there's lots of people out there that own something maybe close to this old, and you probably have never changed any of the fluid other than maybe the engine oil. So I feel relatively confident in the services that I've done. The things that I haven't changed have been I haven't changed the brake fluid, and I haven't changed the clutch fluid, and I haven't changed the radiator fluid. So I think the clutch and brake I think it's maybe every 2 years. I did just have a problem with my front brake. I needed to bleed the system out, I guess, which is actually a lot more simple than I thought. I thought I had to basically drain the whole system and put new fluid in, but I just took it to this guy that I've been going to. He's really knowledgeable, and he, you know, basically just you pull off this cover for the brake fluid, and you can see the air bubbles when you pull the lever. You can see them pop up through the line, and all you have to do is get those out. And so now I have pressure back in my system, which is good. He did say I needed new brake pads, which I was a little surprised with, because when I bought this bike, it was basically the front wheel, you could hear it you could hear metal to metal contact because the pads were basically just gone. And so I think we put new carbon pads in there, but I bought sintered, you know, again, I don't know, he basically just told me to get centered brake pads. I feel fine with these ones right now because, you know, the biggest problem that I had, and I think it was probably a few months ago when unfortunately the bike tipped over. I was kind of on an incline and I walked away from the bike and I thought it was down and it tipped over. Luckily I wasn't on it and I didn't get hurt or anything, but I think some air got built up in the brake line from that happening probably. And just over the next few weeks I could feel my clutch, or I could feel my front brake lever. It was real spongy and real squishy, and I didn't have any bite to my front brakes. And there were times, you know, when I would basically be holding the whole brake and nothing would happen, right? I would have the entire front brake compressed to the handlebar and I wouldn't be stopping, or I would have a very small amount of brakes on the front. So now it's back to having a lot of pressure and it's really tight, which is good. I didn't ride the bike much when it was like that because I wasn't comfortable, obviously, riding a 900-pound motorcycle or close to 900-pound motorcycle without a front brake. So when he fixed that, you know, he just took this off, and the fluid kind of splurts up, but you can see a lot of that air come out of that system. So if you have something like that, which my dad has that problem, I'm going to try to maybe help him with that. In one of his bikes, the front brake is real squishy, so I think it's probably a similar thing where there's just some air built up in the cylinder up there, and you just kind of gotta